kind of awkward reading this gospel when we know the end of the story so well, and we know that it's Christ the King Sunday. So it makes you want to scream out to Pilate, "Do you know who you're talking to?" Pilate, tread a little carefully here, buddy. Do you know who you're talking to? If you're not careful, Pilate, you're going to wind up being the kind of person whose name is synonymous with a bad guy forever. And of course, there's no saving Pilate. He could not see who Jesus really was. Since I was here last time, I've been reassigned. They've moved me to a new parish, 2 parishes actually. Last time I was here, I was at St. Mary's in Oneonta, and now I'm the pastor of St. Mary's in Cooksaki and St. Patrick's in Ravenna, a little bit south of here. And so this weekend was one of my very first weekends in my new parishes, and my parents came to see the place and get to experience it with me. But of course, they've never been to that church before, so nobody knows who they are, what they look like. So when they were sitting in the pew this morning, they looked like 2 average senior citizen types. So the people behind them did not know that they were talking about the new pastor right behind his parents. And I asked my mom, did they talk smack about me? And she said no, but it was funny. They were saying things like, how do you say that name? How old is he anyway? And then at one point, I hope this doesn't go on and on. Things that they never would have said if they had known that my parents were right in front of them, but they couldn't see who they really were. They were too anonymous. And this is the problem that we keep falling into in life, isn't it? We are often as wrong about the people around us as Pilate was wrong about Jesus. We don't get people's real identity. And in Pilate, it's really easy to see, and so maybe that's what makes it more helpful for us. In Pilate, he was seeing a dirty, bleeding, broken, accused man in front of him. And so it was easy to look at him, to hear everyone mocking him, and to think, this guy's a loser. He's got delusions that he's amazing, but he's not. He's got nothing to offer. He doesn't have any good answers. It was easy for Pilate to stop there. And we get things wrong with people all the time too. What Pilate couldn't see was what we heard about in the first reading. That actually, while Jesus appears to be a dirty, bleeding, broken man, he is one with all of heaven. He walks on the clouds. He was there at the beginning of time. Pilate can't see that. And we don't see others' real identity either. For us, when we look at someone, we think by looking at their outside features, their qualities, and their personality that we know who they are. We think we've got a good idea of the individual that we're looking at. But what we can't see is that every single one of us without exception, has an old soul, is an ancient soul that was incarnated by God for right now. That is always true about everyone you meet. They wouldn't be here if it weren't. So we have this phrase in our culture, right? We say, sometimes we'll see a very precocious little girl and we'll say, oh, she's an old soul. And it's true. But what it ignores is, it's true about 100% of all of us. We were in the mind of God at the beginning of time. We are all old souls. And God was waiting for the perfect moment in history to enflesh us. And that's why we're here now. The day you were born was the perfect time for you to be enfleshed here. My birthday is my day, and yours is yours. We are all ancient souls that were brought into existence for God's purposes. And they are mysterious to us, but we don't need to know anymore. The proof of this is actually in the second reading from the book of Revelation. that Jesus is the firstborn of everything that's going to come after. He's the firstborn of all creation. And you know what that means. In a family, when they say, oh, that's my firstborn, that means there's more kids. And who are God's other children? It's us. It's us. He was the only begotten Son of God, but we are all God's children. He's the firstborn of many, many siblings. And it says in Revelation, he made all of us into a kingdom. We are a kingdom of ancient souls that are living out God's plan. So there is great dignity to every life that we come across and every day of our living. Until we can see that, we are essentially acting like Pontius Pilate, because we're using just the outside appearance to try to figure out something that can only be known by God showing it to us. So we need to figure out in our lives how we can remind ourselves, because it's very confusing. It's an illusion that we are all just individuals on this journey. No, we're all part of a great plan, and we need to figure out ways to remind ourselves that we're all ancient, that we are all part of God's plan from the very beginning. And you know when you meet someone who knows this. The people who know this draw people to them like magnets. Right after he was elected Pope, Pope Francis had Holy Week to celebrate almost right away. He'd never been Pope before. And of course, the tradition in Rome always was on Holy Thursday that the Pope would wash the feet of priests and cardinals in the Vatican. But Pope Francis didn't do that. As you know, he went to a prison. And unbelievably, he told all the prisoners to sit in chairs and to take off their shoes and their socks. And the Pope got down on his knees and washed their feet and dried them with a towel. And then, and you've seen this, kissed each foot lovingly. The reason he did that? Because he knew that they are ancient souls. That the fact that they are in prison is part of the mystery that we don't fully understand. It's part of the unfolding of all of life around us. But they're in prison, and he's the Pope, and they're all ancient souls. And his job as Pope is to recognize that and to love them. And when those photos of the Pope kissing the feet of prisoners hit the news, people lost their minds. They loved it. Why did they love it so much? Because we love being around people who know the truth, that we're all ancient souls, that God has a plan that involves all of us, and we're in the perfect place and time. So there's our work for this week, it seems to me. We have a lot of work to do to recognize that everyone we meet is part of God's plan, is an ancient soul. And that's going to be easy for us to remember when we're thinking of our best friend. You know, thinking of someone that we really get along with, that's going to be easy. You know, we have this term soulmate, right? And so, right, that's my soulmate, of course. This ancient soul idea makes perfect sense. But how about with the roommate who drives you crazy? How about the people that get under your skin, or worse than that, have mistreated you, that have done something to you that you can't quite get over, that have wounded you? Maybe the people that you haven't spoken to in years. Are there ancient souls that you no longer connect with because of something that happened in the past? We don't want to make the mistake of missing this point, because it's true. Pilate's name is synonymous with a bad guy. No one can name their child Pilate. It's not a nice name. So he shows us the tragedy of not getting this. Pope Francis shows us the beauty of getting it. So we need to get it, because Christ's brothers and sisters are all around us, and we might be missing out on them. So not only would we say this to Pilate, but we say it to ourselves. Whenever we're talking to anyone we meet, do you know who you're talking to?